after 100,000 years. Master Zhu devoted his whole life to protecting Huandan Mountain. But he died. A miracle happened, the peak shone, which meant that Huandan's energy was free. Because of this, bloody battles began between everyone for the power of the source. The master's sister is dying in his arms. He wants her not to die and wants to keep her conscious with all his might. But she was badly wounded in battle and is dying. Her last words were such that he would get the power of Handan, no matter what it cost him. And leaves this world. And then the head of the leader of the clan of magicians, Hu Wuyun, came with an assistant, Jiang Wu Ming. The clan leader sees how an ally has been injured. He speaks with the last of his strength. Did they manage to defeat other clans in a fierce battle? But she just says goodbye to him and he dies without waiting for an answer. Yun Ti Dao sees her and says that they are the last competitors and attacks with a magic ball. But she is not confused and also attacks. They were thrown back due to the impact and caused severe damage to internal organs. The assistant throws hard, but they only got a few scratches. But Yun Ti Dao shows that he was not badly affected by the attack. 100,000 years have passed, not a few good fighters have died on this mountain. The release of Huandan's power led to a bloodbath. They are arguing who will own the power. But only one of them will be able to take the power. Cultivators' lives are very short and they die very early, but they don't die without a battle. Yun Ti Dao wants her to show all her strength, but she laughingly points at the mountain of corpses. These people are just material that they use and throw away after they become unusable. It turns out that a long time ago they were best friends, but after some incident they separated and went their separate ways. What kind of Yun Ti Dao is limited and does not understand that she has not remained a weakling and is not alive from their joint training. And because of her hard work on herself and on her strength. She suggests that he give the power to Han Dan, and then he will get to control her people. But he didn't like it very much. In the middle of the fight, they began to quarrel. Yun Ti Dao sent her a spy 5 years ago. She took him as an assistant and does not suspect that he is from him. And he's been leaking information for 5 years. But Hu Wuyun also sent him a spy in the form of an assistant, and for 5 years she has been leaking information. After that, they sent a signal together so that the spies would put swords in the back. They did it without a word. But it turns out they knew each other, as they are a couple. They haven't seen each other for so long. And they were very happy and already thought that they could take away the power, but then they pierced each other with swords and fell. It turns out that Yun Ti Dao and Hu Wuyun have been pretending to be dead all this time. Hearing how their assistants fell, they stood up at the same time. She didn't expect that he was also pretending to be dead. And then they admit that they hired spies on each other. He knew that the assistant was a spy and used her to kill his own spy, since he did not trust him much. Yun Ti Dao didn't expect her to have the same plan. She always knew that he was a smart-ass guy and took out the recovery elixir and used it and regenerated it early in the same second. But he is too correct and did not come up with another plan after the assistant dies. But it's not for her to judge him. A master who took on an apprentice because of her appearance. They activate their strongest blows and trying to strike, they feel the strongest pain from which they bleed. And in the same second they realized that they had been poisoned, but they did not understand who and when. And then the assistants get up. They pretended to be dead so that their masters would kill each other. The masters realized that they had poisoned them. They were very angry. The assistants were grateful for the free education and wanted to strike a blow to end all this as soon as possible and get Huandan's strength. But they also felt the strongest pain. The masters mixed pills into their food, which act after a while. Yun Ti Dao and Hu Wuyun were for this and wanted to teach respect for age. What a fool anyone will be when he goes to the most dangerous place on earth. But then their conversation was interrupted by an earthquake. The source opens, and now you need to get to the top to get strength. But none of them could take a single step because of the poison in their blood. Yun Ti Dao had an antidote that could cure the poison and kill. The odds were 50-50. I offered to take it together and wanted to share the power. But Hu Wuyun and the spies were against it, as he takes more power. But he explained that it was his idea and an antidote. But Hu Wuyun also had an antidote, and she would not share it with anyone. But he offered her a little more strength. But then Hu Wuyun's ally pretended to be dead and could not stand their stupid conversation, decided to get up and make fun of them. But Yun Ti Dao's sister was also pretending to be dead. She was saddened that so few people saw her death, but it's not so important. The main thing for her is to get the power of Handan. Yun Ti Dao and Hu Wuyun, along with their assistants, were shocked by what was happening They wanted to easily get the power of Hondan. Friendship, righteousness, artifacts, girls, all this is not comparable to strength, power and authority. The ally carried out all the demands and dirty work in order for Hu Wuyun to believe that her charms had worked. He wants to make her and Yun Ti Dao his slaves as soon as he gets Han Dan's power. And then an earthquake occurs again, but stronger than the previous one, and this means that let the source open, and you need to hurry to the top. The mountain of corpses that lay on the ground, they also all pretended to be dead. After feeling the earthquake, they realized that the source had opened and they needed to hurry so that someone did not take all the power. The competition was too big and the allies were killing each other. Strange people ran in front of the masters, and assistant Yun Ti Dao was not satisfied and ordered to pull himself together and catch up with them. But unfortunately they forgot that they were poisoned, and after a few steps all four fell from the terrible pain. And then they hurriedly decide who should drink how much of the antidote, but they did not trust each other. This situation is too dumb. The magic vat at the top of the mountain was open and waiting for the strongest of all cultivators. But the master's sister and Hu Wuyun's ally decided who would get all the power of Haiyan Dan, and until then the path is closed. He wants to negotiate since they have the same elements, but she ignores his offer and attacks. He blocks the blow, an evil aura forms around them. In the middle of their fight, others climb up to them and see Chan forcefully pointing his finger, he calls others. They were in shock, and none of them wanted to lower their swords. But without having time to agree on them, a huge crowd flies and knocks down, but the guy was able to hold on to the chains attached to the edge of the volcano to hold the area with the vat. But she clung to his leg and did not want to let go because there was lava below. People who were in a hurry to get the vat with force did not see that further, let it be possible to pass only through the chains, and falling they were able to cling to them, and 5 people were already hanging. Ning Kaiyu holding the chains step on his fingers, and it becomes harder for him to hold on. The master's sister threatens that if he lets go, she will come to him after death, but below the man even on the verge of death harasses her. But one of them farted in the girl's face, she almost fainted, but the guy encourages her to hold on with the last of her strength. But people, trying to get to the vat faster, forcefully step on Ning Kaiyu's face. He was such a loser that 4 times stepped on his face, and one of them was a bird. And then the master's sister deftly gets out and pushes Ning with her foot, his last words were, "Burn in hell, you beast." A huge crowd of people gathered around the vat with force, and then the Cyclops wants to appropriate himself here. He gathers all the force into a fist and hits the vat, but the spell was so hot that it burned his hand. Others looking at him laugh because they also tried and demands to observe the cue. And then the vat breaks and the bright light blinds everyone's eyes. A couple of minutes later, a guy comes out with a chan instead of underpants and introduces himself as Yuan Dan. Crowd doesn't believe him, as he looks a lot like a pill. But to make them believe, he offers to hit him. But they do not believe and think that he has absorbed all the power. And they shout from the crowd, "Kill him!" And all at once use their strongest attacks. But not a single unit of damage is inflicted on him. The golden aura of inviolability is automatically activated in him. Everyone was shocked by his defense, and then the bull attacks the ghostly lunge of the beast. Hondan did not deviate from the attack, but simply held it with 2 fingers and then took his head and pressed it into the ground. Hondan wants to give a little strength to prove to everyone that he is not lying. But the bull then saw something completely different from the shock. He heard, "Do you want to tear and eat me? I'll have to punish you for your rudeness in front of everyone." But he begged for mercy. Hondan just ignored it and tore off his finger and put it in his mouth, and he just ate it. Everyone asked, "How are you feeling?" And his finger was so delicious that the smoke from his nose went out after a couple of seconds. A very strong energy comes out inside. He feels so strong that he challenges everyone. I think no one will beat him. And he thinks that now everyone will listen to him and obey his orders. But then abruptly he is overwhelmed with strength, so much so that it tears him apart. Everyone was in a daze from what they saw. He invites volunteers to accept his power. And then an old man comes out of the crowd, and if no one is against, then he will try to get strength. He is a great cultivator of Ziyang, who spent 100 years to create his way in alchemy. He was not surprised that the bull was torn apart by force and thinks that he can withstand it, and then his magic of light and fire will become refined and refined. Haiyan Dan was bored with his empty conversations. The old man wants 2 fingers instead of 1. The old man needs 2 fingers and he gives it to him. A crowd of people demands to eat a finger faster, but the old man thought about it. He tries to eat one and take the other for later, but the crowd shouts that he is a deceiver and a coward and demands to eat both fingers, and he finds excuses. He shouts for them to stop moralizing to him. The old man looks thoughtfully at his finger and thinks if he eats it, his life will not be the same, his life depends on this decision. Hyundan hurries him. The old man was sweating with fear and he wouldn't have another chance. People want him to do it faster and there is no way back for him. But he wants to take home to study this power. But Hyundan takes his hand and puts it in his mouth. He swallows and his finger gets a little stuck in his throat. People are happy that he ate a finger and bet that he will break into pieces. The old man's stomach swells very much, and then he very quickly activates the spell of flexibility and spiritual fortitude. People are shouting for it to explode, and then an explosion occurs, and a ball of energy flies past everyone out of the smoke. And then Ziyang comes out. The finger not only gives strength, but also completely makes the body young and strong. Coming out he says. Who there wanted me to be torn apart? The power was overflowing inside him. He creates water to look at himself and then laughs and asks. Have you seen a man more beautiful than me? Now you will be trembling with fear, not me. He remembers that his wife was taken away from him and wants to take revenge on everyone who humiliated him for all 100 years. Everyone started discussing him. And everyone was thinking how to swallow the pill and not explode. And then the old man who took his wife away insults him and says that who will be afraid of you, made himself a pretty face. And then he shoots him and kills him. Thus, he takes revenge on him for all his humiliation. Looking at the pill, he believes that he is the one everyone has been waiting for a long time, and he wants to eat him. All cultivators now want to get strength and ran to him. For everyone ran without cues to Hyundan for strength. Everyone wanted to run into Ziyang at once. And he pushed away a crowd of people with one finger and does not allow anyone to come to get power. Ziyang is so greedy that he doesn't give anyone a go and wants to get even more power. A man from the crowd is rude to him and does not want to listen to him, and Ziyang immediately attacks so that he knows his place and thinks before speaking. From now on, he wants to create the strongest faction in the world. They were very lucky because they became the first students. He pointed his finger at Yun Ti Dao's younger sister. He offers to become his wife and the boss of the rest of the people. But it reminds her of her lover. But he sends her because she constantly cheated on him. She slept with all the men in the city, and when he found out about it, she told him that it was all because of him. After marrying Yun Ti Dao's sister, he offers to visit her to show off. But one wife is not enough for him, and he wants to make a harem. If he starts dating Yuan Tian and Hu Wu Yun, then he will become the lord of the union and the dark sects. He had a very strong imagination and even drooled. But then an explosion occurs abruptly, and everyone thinks that he ate his finger again, but then everyone realized that the old man exploded, unable to withstand this force inside. Hyundan gathers the power that was left behind by the old man and returns the 2 fingers that he gave him. And offers anyone to eat a finger to gain strength. But everyone was very scared and refused. He got tired of waiting, so he went up to the Menchoza bald guy and he comes up with excuses, but people didn't like it and want him to eat. But then Yuan Tian is offered her candidacy. She is very worried and wants some time. The cultivators were unhappy. She tells them to shut their mouths, let them remember those idiots who died overestimating their strength. She asks to give her a very small part of the finger. The cultivator just remains to observe and heighten her for such actions. But Hyundan just takes sulfur out of his ear and offers it to her. She agrees and does not take it from his hands. The cultivators want it to burst. Well, they have no choice but to insult behind their backs. The force is so much from a small part of the pill that it turns all over and even threw it into the air, and then it flies away and comes up from behind and hugs Wang Da-ma's hand. She started having glitches. She only has Yun Ti Dao on her mind. She loves him very much and wants to live the rest of her life with him. Everyone was shocked by her actions and wants them to be the same. But she wants to pair cultivation with the master. She had a very strong imagination. But she abruptly remembers that she is hindered by Hu Wu Yun, who walks with the master forever. Everyone was shocked by her words. She was so angry that she strangled Wang Da-ma. She wanted the attention of the master. She thought that Hu Wu Yun is better because she has big breasts, but now she has more, and now the master should only look at her. Wang Da-ma activated the golden shield, but it didn't help him much. She squeezed so that she broke the shield and knocked him out. The cultivators were very scared of her and called her a demon. But she went to the other one and started touching the face, and after that she thinks it's the master's skin so smooth like a baby's ass. She looks at him and says that she does not know how to cultivate and look at who you have become like. You have no manhood left at all, but it's okay, I've become much stronger. First I'll kill this scum, and then we'll restore your strength, strangle the python, so to speak. Trembling with fear, he tries to call for help, but his friends are afraid to approach and help him. She got so close that he turned red like a tomato. She asks him to tell her that she has become a better version of herself. But it's hard for the guy because she squeezed his neck hard and accidentally strangled him. And then she notices after he fell that he doesn't look like a master at all. She tries to find a master and shouts with a cultivator. Don't rush me, senior, I don't want to catch you with this scum again. And he starts chasing people, and for 5 seconds, there was no one left next to Hyun Dan. Han Dan approached the bald man and asked if he wanted to try it, and at that moment he pretended to be dead so as not to grab it from anyone else. But Hyun Dan was determined to wake him up and started touching him all over his body. But he didn't give up and continued to pretend to be dead. He turned his gaze to the crowd, which, because of all the forces, tried to escape from her, but they did not succeed. At the same time, on the other side, Ning Kaiyu got out of the volcano and cursed everyone and intends to kill everyone. Ning Kaiyu at this time is walking along the chains in Hyun Dan. He spent too much effort to get out of the volcano, and if he ate a pill, then it was worth getting out for. But looking ahead, he sees a crowd of people running in his direction. He was very scared and just stood there, and then they tell him to dump and step on his face from a jump, and he falls down again. The foot of the mountain. After the birth of the great pill of immortality, a handful of forgotten people remained at the foot of the mountain, fighting for their worthless lives. There is an explosion at the top of the volcano. Hu Woo-yun and the master and his assistants think that the pill has appeared. They need to remove the poison faster in order to have time to pick it up. A few moments later, another powerful explosion. And after a ball of fire flies to them, they remembered the math and the amount of energy, and in this situation they needed to duck. Because of this fire, the back of their clothes burned through and their underpants were visible, but after a while, a second ball was flying, which flew right at the top of the master's head, thereby burning out the upper part of his hair, and Hu Woo-yun began to laugh. But the master was shocked where such power came from. This meant that someone had already eaten the pill and gained strength. The master estimated his chances of survival: if a woman, then she will not resist his charms. If a man, then he will die. And then Hu Woo-yun also thought the opposite. Return to reality. A huge bunch of people are running towards them. She took the will in her fist and asked the students of the light section to report everything that happened. But no one answered them, and they were still rude. They didn't get out of their way in time, so they were just walked over. Hu Woo-yun had power, 1,000 lives in his hands, and here no one even paid attention to her. After going through all this humiliation, they haven't changed in any way. Hyun Dun saw the frog and offered to take his power, but the frog didn't know how to talk, so she didn't answer anything. But he was asking one question. What happened on this rowing mountain? And decided to go down. Hyun Dun flew to the master and Hu Woo-yun. And then it lands on them. They begin to evaluate it. And we were shocked that he landed and didn't break anything, so he's very strong, and instead of cowards, Chang. Hyun Dan went to them, but they didn't even have the strength to stand up. Each of them has achieved great success in life and is now helplessly lying on the ground. It's a shame they pretended to be dead so he wouldn't get to them. Hyun Dong squatted down and offered to try it, as it is a great pill. But after touching them, he sat down and started touching them everywhere, but they tried to hold on to the end. They communicated through telepathy and were shocked by his action. He started touching Hu Woo-yun's navel. But it was clear from her appearance that she liked it. Then I got up and walked around and stuck my finger in the 5th point of the master. He has never experienced, his life will never be the same again. This is too much. You wouldn't wish that on an enemy. He kept poking around there, but he was able to endure these torments. Hyun Dan pulled out his finger and was about to do something with this finger to Hu Woo-yun, but the master accidentally made a sound. He thought that the master wanted to try it. Hu Woo-yun clung to his arm, thereby he made a sound. Hyun Dan took his head and stuck his finger in his mouth, which was at the 5th point. The master scratches the ground with his nails in disgust and tears his shoe. He's trying to hold on with all his might. The master did the same as Hu Woo-yun to him, and she made a sound. Hyun Dong thought that she wanted to try it too and puts the same finger in her mouth. She turns out in disgust. But she couldn't stand it and threw up. The master was happy about it. Now if someone finds out what happened, then her reputation will fall. They started to argue, but Huan Dong joined them in the conversation. They had completely forgotten about him. They had no other choice and decided to scare him. And they said that they are the strongest cultivator and sorceress. And they asked me to tell them my name. And he scared me by the fact that he prevented me from cultivating. They think he looks like some kind of savage. And then Hu Wuyun tries to talk to him. Boy, you have strange clothes, you and your master have been practicing somewhere in the forest for hundreds of years? I am a dangerous woman, one of the strongest in this world, you and your master may die, but my cultivation has advanced, so I am in a good mood. I'll give you a chance. If you can make me laugh, then I will spare the life of you and your master. But if you can't? The master was surprised by Hu Wuyun's acting skills and decided to help her after making an aura around himself, but Huan Dong just stood up and looked at them strangely. Hu Wuyun was surprised that he didn't show respect to the elders by standing up. Impudent that the master did not teach you to show respect to your elders. This was his last chance to stay alive. But they spent their remaining strength on cool effects and in case of danger, would not be able to resist him. But he wasn't a bit scared. Huan Ding is a great pill that can give great power, fame, wealth, women and of course immortality. Do you want to eat me? He asked. They started laughing out loud in response, since he was not a pill for them. He thought he had said something wrong and looked at them strangely. They said that he does not have a bad humor and they keep him and his master alive. No matter where he is, if someone dares to tell him, let him say the name of Hu Wuyun, what is under her protection, and they will leave him alone. The master asked what happened on the mountain, who ate the pill. So you want me, Huan Dan thought. The master started laughing at the top of his voice again. He wanted to make friends with the one who ate the pill and regain his wonderful carefree life. This was the master's most cunning plan. And Huan Dan began to explain what had happened. First he showed the bull. They immediately thought that he had eaten a pill, but said that he exploded from the force raging inside the body, shattered into small pieces. Huan Dan blew up his head to show by example what happened to the bull and then restored his head. Hu Wuyun and the master were shocked by what they saw and could not believe their eyes. They thought that he was using some kind of spell. And the next one showed the old man, and they are again surprised by his transformation. And he said that he was bullied and even his wife was taken away. He ate the pill to get revenge on them all. And he killed his abuser and wanted to create the strongest faction in the world. Yuan Tian. And then he showed what happened to him after he ate the pill. He turned into a young guy with a strong physique, used a water spell to look at himself, and then started insulting everyone. They were thinking how to defeat this old man and whether they would succeed at all. But after Huan Dan exploded again to show what had become of him. Kid. It's not funny anymore. We are not the first freshness, our hearts may stop. Stop fooling around here already. God, what a generation has gone. Then he turns into Yuan Tian and also does not forget about her charms. The master looked at him in surprise again.